to Olfactofiles. I'm Tara, and today I'm going to share my thoughts, finally, on the Prada Infusions collection. Now, most of this will actually be first impressions because I've had this set here for months now, maybe getting close to a year, and I still haven't tried it. So let's take care of that today. Basically, what you have in here, by the way, isn't this packaging just, that's fantastic. Well done, Prada. So anyway, in this set, I have 7 different fragrances from the Infusions collection, but I also have a full bottle of Infusion de Iris, which is the most popular, I would assume. It's gotta be, right? Anyway, so this, of course, is not a first impression because I'm very familiar with this fragrance. My mom wears it. I've smelled it a billion times, I've worn it. So this one, I'll just give you my thoughts on briefly because I've talked about it before. However, these other 7 here will be first impressions. So real quick, I have the Iris Cedre, Fleur d'Oranger, which is an orange blossom fragrance, Amande, which is almond. We have Oliette, which I believe is that carnation. I think that's carnation. Vetiver, Mimosa, and Rose. Mimosa I'm not looking forward to because I don't like mimosa, but the rest should probably be okay. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to mention that Daniela Andrier did all of the fragrances for this collection. She is Prada's in-house perfumer. She's one of my favorites. And so just put that out there. So I'm to say every time she created all of these, all 8 of them. And I'm going to start with, of course, the one that I already mentioned I have a full bottle of. This one is Infusion de Iris. And you can see kind of what the bottle looks like. All of the bottles, to my knowledge, look essentially like this, but the color scheme changes slightly depending on which particular fragrance it is. But I think they're really nice in terms of the presentation. And this one here is just an absolute modern classic, in my opinion. It is a beautiful, clean, ever so slightly soapy iris. There's a bit of incense in here, a little bit of woodiness from cedar, I believe. I get some light touches of citrus, definitely some vetiver, which I personally love. And I think this could be a unisex fragrance. I think women tend to wear it more often, but I think that men can definitely pull this off as well. It's just absolutely beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. It reminds me of my mom. I've mentioned that before because she wears it, but even without that nostalgic sort of connection there, I still think I would adore this fragrance. It's just so beautiful. And I'm the one who bought it for her originally, so of course I picked out something that I liked. So years and years ago, I bought this for her and she's been wearing it, along with many other fragrances ever since. All right, so now we're gonna dig into these ones that I haven't smelled before, and I'm just gonna kind of go in order, but of course, by the way, so let me just pop one of these out so you can see. So they come like essentially wrapped in a little cardboard box because the actual bottles themselves inside all look pretty much the same, like you wouldn't be able to tell. But here's the thing, they're just little dabbers. I can kind of smell that one a bit. So they're just little dabbers, and I don't do dabbers. So I, of course, have decanted these into little 5 ml bottles, so that way I can spray them and get a better feel for the actual fragrance. All right, so the next one up is the Iris Cedre, and it'll be kind of interesting to compare this to Infusion de Iris because they both have iris and cedar, obviously. Okay, so I would say that this one is, let me actually compare them directly, but I think it is quite similar. To me, it's not quite as bright and soapy, and I would say, in fact, that I think there could be a bit of neroli in here. There might be in the Infusion de Iris as well, but I feel like I might be able to pick up a slight bit of a tinge of a bitter neroli. But it's not so much that I dislike that because many of you know I'm not a big fan of neroli. I mostly get the iris and the cedar, but there is something else going on there. I do think there is still maybe a touch of incense in here. But yeah, overall, I don't think there's really citrus in here. It doesn't feel as bright, and it feels, like I said, maybe a little bit like slightly more bitter, maybe a little bit dirtied up compared to Infusion de Iris. So perhaps this would be one that that men might like even more than Infusion de Iris. But I think they both can be worn by both genders. But anyway, that's Iris Cedre. I do quite like it, but I think overall I prefer Infusion de Iris. Okay, the next one in this set is the Fleur d'Oranger, Fleur d'Orange, Orange Blossom. And so I assume this one will be a pretty floral fragrance, specifically Orange Blossom. Hopefully, I mean, so Orange Blossom and Neroli are basically the same thing, they're just distilled differently, but Orange Blossom to me is more palatable than Neroli because I just don't like super bitter things. Yeah, I would say that, I mean, it could potentially have both versions, but to me, this is more floral. I think there's tuberose in here. This smells like Orange Blossom and tuberose to me mostly. Could be other florals as well, but that's what I'm getting. This is pretty light. Not as powerful as the last two, at least it doesn't seem to be. Seems a bit softer, a little quieter. Honestly, I don't think this is anything super special, but I also am not like a huge fan of florals. Yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. If you really like florals and if you really like Orange Blossom and tuberose, because I think that's in here, then you might want to check out this one. Again, all of these I think are fairly inexpensive nowadays at discounters compared to like their original retail prices. And I've definitely seen full bottles of this out there for decent prices. So yeah, it's okay. Not for me. I'm not tempted to buy a bottle of it, but you know, again, that's not my style of fragrance, so not surprising. All right, the next one excites me a little bit more. This is Amande, Infusion de Amande, and this would be an almond fragrance. So let me spray this one real quick. Okay, so yeah, it's an almond fragrance, that's for sure. Probably heliotrope, I would imagine. Heliotrope is a floral that pulls very almondy to me. There could be anise in here as well. It smells a little bit, like a little tiny bit like a black licorice anise seed sort of thing going on, which I personally like, but I know that's gonna put some people off of it. And a bit of musk, I think there's musk in here too. So it's like, I got almond right away, but now as I'm smelling it more, I'm actually, the almond's still there. I think it's heliotrope, like I said, it smells like heliotrope. That's still there, but definitely getting something a bit musky, but also a bit like anise seed. So that's really interesting. I quite like that it isn't just straightforward almond like I expected. I'm gonna have to play with that one some more. That one's promising. So that's Infusion de Amande, and so far, besides Infusion de Iris, it's my favorite. All right, the next one I'm not really sure what to expect because I don't think I've personally smelled any carnation dominant fragrances before. This one is called Oeillette. I don't know how you say that. But like I said, it means carnation in English. So this one, okay, I get that. I get the carnation vibe to it. There's something in here that smells a little bit, like a tiny bit spicy. I also think there could be sandalwood in here. Okay, so hear me out. This does not smell like samsara, but something in here reminds me of samsara a little bit. I think it's like the sandalwoody vibe, but maybe that like in combo with the florals, I'm not sure. But you know, like I said, it doesn't smell like it. It just sort of gives me that same vibe. There could be patchouli in here. Maybe the tiniest bit of citrus. I think. I don't know what it is. I can't tell, but there's like a tiny bit of citrus in there. But that's unique. It's interesting. Like I said, the only thing that comes to mind is maybe samsara, but not exactly like it. I like this. I like it. Not as much as the Amande, not as much as Iris, but I do like it. It's different. All right, the next one I am quite excited for. This is Infusion de Vetiver. I really enjoy vetiver more than probably the average female does because I think a lot of people do tend to see vetiver as a masculine note. I disagree. I don't think notes have gender, but oh yeah. This is a nice, slightly green, hay-like vetiver. So it's like the hay hasn't dried out yet, like it's still a bit green. There's some citrus in here as well. There's ginger in here. This smells like a gingery vetiver combo with some citrus. There's also something herbal to this. I don't know what it is, but there's like an herbal quality to it. And I don't know. There could be florals. I'm not positive about that. I'm getting mostly citrus, ginger, vetiver, of course, and then green touches, like I said, something herbal in there as well. Oh, that's nice. That's different from anything that I have currently. I have a few vetiver fragrances, like, you know, dominant vetiver fragrances, but This is still unique from them. Quite like this. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna have to think about that one some more. I'm glad that these are turning out to be pretty solid because, you know, I do really like this house in terms of a designer house for fragrances. And like I said, these are, in general, not too expensive. So if I found one that I really loved, it wouldn't put me out too much. Okay, we're down to the last two, and we're gonna go ahead and get Mimosa out of the way since I am not typically a fan of Mimosa fragrances. Mimosa drinks, love them. I would have those all day. But Mimosa the flower, not a fan. So let's see what this smells like. Let's hope for the best. Here we go. I hate it less than usual. It does still have that fuzziness that Mimosa always has to me. Like, honestly, a lot of times Mimosa gives me more of a texture to a fragrance than like what it contributes in terms of the actual scent. It does, I mean, like it does have its own scent, of course, but it's like a fuzzy floral. It smells fuzzy to me, and I don't really understand, like, or I don't really know how to put it any other way. But it does have that. There is, I think, citrus again in here. There's something woody. I think there's rose in here as well. It smells a bit like rose, which is maybe making it a little bit less awful than I expected. I would not buy this though. Oh, no, it's doing the thing where I get the pressure here. It's doing the sinus pressure thing. Okay, yeah, we're done smelling that. I don't hate it, but again, I have issues with Mimosa, not a fan. I might have more issues with Mimosa than I do Indolic Jasmine, to be quite honest, because at least Jasmine doesn't give me sinus headaches. I don't know why I get that tension there with certain florals. Like certain white florals will do it, and Mimosa often does it, where like I'll just smell it a few times and all of a sudden I just get this extreme pressure right in here. I don't get it. Anyway, yeah, not buying that one. All right, now let's try to end on a better note. This one is Infusion de Rose. I think somebody at one point, a long time ago, mentioned that this was their favorite from the Infusions collection. I know that the almond one, the Amande, I think that one's pretty popular. I think the Iris Cedre is quite popular as well, but like I said, probably more with men than women. Sorry, my voice is going. Anyway, so I can already smell this and it smells lovely. Here we go. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful rose. It is a straightforward rose. It actually reminds me very much. So, okay, let me just be a nerd for a minute. When I was in high school, I went to the Renaissance Fair because nerd, right? And there was this this guy who was working, and I thought he was quite cute. But he was making these roses out of metal, like he was, you know, a metal worker. I don't know what you would call it, but he was making roses out of metal. But then he also was using some sort of rose oil to actually scent them. And it stayed scented for a really long time, even though it was metal. But it reminds me specifically of that particular rose oil that rather cute young man used to make his metal roses. So yeah, I think there's orange in here. Something along those lines. If it's not orange, it could be orange blossom. But honestly, it smells like a pretty straightforward rose. It doesn't seem too old-fashioned to me. But you definitely have to love straight up rose to really enjoy this one. I do quite like it though. So all in all, I think that for the most part, this set was, you know, a pretty big hit for me. I like Iris Cedre, but I don't think I need it because it is close enough to Infusion de Iris that, you know, probably unnecessary. I also really like the Amande. The Carnation one, however you say that one was interesting, but I really like the Vetiver and the Rose. So those three, I think the Amande, Vetiver, and Rose are my favorites besides Infusion de Iris. However, I also still really like Iris Cedre. It's just redundant, so I wouldn't consider that. I hope you all liked this video, and I hope it was helpful because personally, I almost never see anything other than Infusion de Iris in stores to actually sample. And so I know for a lot of people, it's going to be a blind buy if you buy one of these. And so hopefully this at least helps inform that decision if you are thinking about picking up one of these infusion fragrances. Overall, I think that this collection is another strong line from Prada. It's probably one of their better lines. I also really like the Olfactofiles collection, which is kind of their high-end one. But I think that in terms of a collection that features specific notes, you know, several different houses do that, but I think this one does it quite well. And I think in general, they're pretty straightforward. But there are a couple that I think were a bit of an exception. Like I said, I think the Vetiver has a lot going on. I'm dropping everything, sorry. I think the Vetiver, I think the Carnation, that's pretty straightforward. But I think the Vetiver has a bit more going on than just Vetiver. I think the Almond one as well seems to be a little bit more complex. And the Carnation seemed unique to me, but that, again, that could just be because I don't have a lot of Carnation fragrances. So otherwise, I think they're fairly straightforward, but really pretty fragrances, except the Mimosa. I don't like that at all. But so basically, it just depends on your personal taste. So what are you looking for? Which notes do you like the most? Go for that, right? If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be part of the notification squad. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.